today we're going to talk about transparent leadership, how to be a more transparent leader and why it really matters. And I'm here with my great pal, Dr. Frank Hagenau. Hey, Dr. Frank.
Hi, Eamon. How are you?
Great, great. So, Frank, I thought today we would talk about something that's easier to say than to do. A lot of people think transparent leadership sounds like a great idea, but actually I don't really know how I do that. So I thought we would share maybe 3 very specific strategies that might help people just to do a better job. So first things first, Frank, to be a more transparent leader, what's the first thing that you should do that makes a difference?
I think the first thing to do is to admit that you do not know everything. These are uncertain times and I don't have the solution. Not for everything and not just in the minute.
Yeah. Now, I know you talk about the importance of not trying to do everything in one go and small provable steps. What are you talking about and why is that so important? Why does that affect transparency?
Especially in difficult times, you have to take small steps because you don't know what is going to happen and you don't know whether your decisions are affecting the situation as you wish. If you are making the changes you like to do. And so it is very important to take small steps on the way to your greater goal.
No, I think that's exactly right, because you get to see what actually happens. You break a few eggs, you're going to make your omelets. Maybe they'll be good, maybe they won't, but at least you're making an omelet. So that's one level. But I think the other thing is that we need to think about, when you're trying to be a more transparent leader, how people are going to react to you on a human level in terms of how they assess you. So, one of the things that we know is that motivations, how people assess your motivations, influences how they will behave in your general direction. So what are the litmus tests that people apply and how can we do a better job in managing those things?
Especially in crisis, people need certainty, they need hope, and they need someone who they can trust. But trust is not something which just occurs because you want it to occur, but trust is something you have to earn. And so people are really looking very, very closely whether you are trustworthy and whether they can trust your promises. So this is something which happens all the time. They are just testing you and they are looking very, very closely whether you keep your promises.
Yeah, actually, it's so funny you say that. I was thinking about one of the first jobs I had after college way back when, and I was so pleased because my boss told me, "You're going to be a marketing executive." I was, "Oh man, I'm like nearly on the board of directors, woohoo!" And he told me, "We got this brilliant product and all the insurance brokers in Ireland, they're going to love you, they're going to love this is fabulous." And I absolutely wanted to believe it. The problem was that in the first few calls that I had with people, I was kind of getting just this kind of reaction, nodding heads and people kind of listening. But then the brokers I would approach, they would say, "Well, just leave me your brochure and I'll be in touch with you." And then days would go, weeks would go, months would go, and I'm getting no response. And then I'm realizing, hey, listen, this can't be right. And then I'm doubting myself, I'm doubting my boss, I'm doubting the company. And more importantly, actually, that job went south in a hurry because I just couldn't trust in myself and in the others that were trying to lead me. So what's going on there psychologically? Why is it that humans react in that way?
Because we like to have things turn out positively. We like to be the winner of the situation. We like to have things easy. Because otherwise it would be a tough life, and who likes a tough life? This is the situation we have to deal with. But especially in crisis, things aren't that easy, and it needs people who are willing to tell the truth, and people can handle the truth if you tell them what they need to know and what you really know, without making things up, without covering them or sugarcoating them. And this is something people, although they do not like it, would appreciate, and this will bring trust to you and will make you trustworthy.
Yeah, you're 100% right, because what I realized after a while was, look, these folks I was trying to sell to, they don't like A, B, and C here, but if I kind of couch it in a different way, I can get some reaction. And that would have been better if I had started that way, because I wouldn't have wasted their time and my energy. And the problem is that you get into ever decreasing circles really quickly, where people don't trust you in a certain area, and the next thing is that's all over the show. So that's not a good plan. And actually, that then brings me to a third thing I know that's very important as a strategy that you suggest, and that is the importance of constantly checking in and getting feedback. What's that about, and why is that so important?
Because especially in these difficult times, you have to stay in a close contact with your team, with professionals, with experts, to get things to your knowledge. And you do not always know whether you are understood properly by your counterparts. And this is the reason why you should have these feedback loops more than you should have it already. Because you will receive feedback, and you will get to know whether you are understood in the way you would like to be perceived.
Because it's really in the notion of checking in also means that you know if people have checked out and if they've actually understood what you said. Because if there's a huge gap between one and the other, somebody's going to be toast.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and actually maybe that lends itself then to kind of something that is another kind of takeaway here, which is that, you know, when people are in difficult circumstances, one of the most important things is not to be passive, is not to sit on our hands. Because if you're trying to drive a car and you're sitting on your hands, a crash is going to happen. So I'd rather you steer it. It may not be a perfect direction, but at least you're steering the darn thing. So it's important that people are making decisions that people respond to the stories that they hear and the stories that they believe. And so the stories they believe guide the actions that they take. So again, just thinking about psychologically, what happens when we're making a decision, even if it's not the right decision, that matters from a leadership trust perspective. Why is that so important?
Because you take action, and leading is about taking action and not sitting there with your hands in the lap and waiting for something which might happen or not. So even if you are not quite sure whether this is the perfectly right decision, you should make a decision instead of doing nothing, because even if it is the wrong decision, you will know afterwards, and you are able to adjust, you are able to improve, you are able to act, and these are all the things you wouldn't be able to if you are just sitting there and waiting for things to come, because you do not know whether they happen because of your action or they would have happened anyway.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Well, and again, speaking of whether things would happen or not, that actually lends itself perfectly to our next video, which I'm going to encourage you to go and check out, because we're going to talk about what you can learn from great leaders who have made fabulous decisions in the face of uncertainty, because there's a lot that can be learned from the trials and the tribulations and successes of others. See you later, Frank.
Yeah, see you, Eamon.